Hello, Alabama fans, and welcome to the BOL Recruiting Show. I'm Bama Online publisher Tim Watts, and with me is Andrew Bone, recruiting extraordinaire, the editor, does a lot of the little things. We dip into team and we talk a little basketball, but today we're focusing on recruiting. This is a show entirely focused to recruiting. Best time of the year for recruiting. I mean, everybody said recruiting's changed, and it kind of did change. It obviously did change, but December just became June, Andrew Bone.
Yeah, it's funny to me when people talk about, well, it's June. Nobody's going to really care until
They care.
November and December. When it gets a little bit closer to the signing period, because NIL is going to change, prices are going to move up. I mean, it happens in some situations, but not many. As we saw last year, there weren't many guys who we saw flip between when they made their decision in June or July all the way until December. A lot of these guys have gone through this whole recruiting process. Some of them for 2 years, some of them for the last year. They've taken their official visits. They took their spring visits. They've gone to games in the fall. Now they're kind of tired of the recruiting process. They're ready to shut it down, get focused on their senior season. Because once you get into your senior season, I mean, you're going to go see the schools that you're committed to, and then December comes. There's no longer any in-home visits. There's no official visits in December. You're signing on the dotted line during that first Wednesday in December. So things move pretty quick once you get into the season. So a lot of these kids go ahead and make that decision right now.
And there's also the personal aspect of it. Does anybody remember their senior year? It's a good year. The classes are easier. Everyone's celebrating you. You're going through the middle and elementary schools, getting high five. You got all the games. You want to soak it in. You want to absorb it. Prom, homecoming, dates, your girlfriend. You got a lot of stuff going on. So when you've had a summer this busy, I think it is a time to take a breath and just focus on their season. Andrew Bone, Alabama got a good one this week. We talked about him in our Nuggets. I'm going to go flash back to that. We talked about him in our Nuggets. Sam Utu, we felt Bama came out. And the thing with Sam, 6'5", 330 pounds, is he's one of those rare. We hear news when it's positive news while they're on the visit. We don't really talk about it. You want to get them home. You want them to sit down and talk to Kalen DeBoer. But the Sam Utu news broke wide open. We're just hanging out Saturday night, and boom, we're making a prediction and an RPM, and felt very strongly for Alabama, and he committed on Monday.
Yeah, and we talked about that. Last month we felt Alabama was moving in a good direction with him. Took a visit back in March. Coaching staff had it in home with him in May, and things went really well. Of course, he took a couple official visits before coming to Tuscaloosa, SMU, Washington. There was a little bit of buzz on the Washington side, but then he was scheduled to visit Texas and Tennessee over the course of these next 2 weekends, but decided to go ahead and shut it down. Told his mom that Friday night. They had arrived late Thursday and started the official visit on Friday morning. And then by Friday night, went up to his mom, basically told her that he was ready to go ahead and shut things down, and felt like he was home. So it was a big win there. A guy that can play on the inside or out, 6'5", 330 pounds, has been a starter for his high school team since his freshman season. And I had an interesting conversation with his offensive line coach the other day. His offensive line coach, Chris Ward, actually played at Mater Dei, one of the top high school programs in the country. And he was telling me, he said, when Sam, right before his freshman season, was trying to decide which school he was going to go to, he was either going to go to Mater Dei. They really wanted him to come there, or Orange Lutheran. Well, he ends up going against the popular pick and going to Orange Lutheran instead, and obviously has made a pretty big name for himself and had a great high school career so far. So, really athletic kid on the offensive line, and I think Alabama coaching staff is really excited to have him on board.
Yeah, and we'll touch on a couple other nuggets. And nuggets for you that aren't on BamaOnline.com. And again, you can try us for $1 for the first week and check us out. We had nuggets, which are inside scoop on the official visitors. We had them on Sunday. The news was flying really fast. And now we've discussed several times on this show, Alabama, they know how to host a party. They know how to host a visitor and make these guys feel at home. But, more great news that that's trending that way. It hasn't happened like you two, is Gyra Edwards. 5-star guy. We've got predictions in. We got RPMs in, which is our prediction that he will end up at Alabama. He's a beast. He is a guy that fits mentally. We are told as much the Alabama, what Alabama looks for as on the field as off the field.
Yeah, you really got to be impressed with Alabama's defensive back recruiting from last year. Going into this cycle, they already have one 5-star in the fold in Jordan Edmonds, and then if they could get another 5-star defensive back in Gyra Edwards, that would be really really impressive after last year's haul. So Gyra came in with his entire family. It was the first time his entire family had an opportunity to go on one of these official visits. They had been to Georgia, been to Auburn, but the entire family had not been able to go to. Had visits scheduled for Texas A&M and Oregon these next couple weeks, but came out, I guess it was yesterday, saying that he had canceled those 2 trips or the day before. So a lot of positive momentum for Alabama right now. He does have a commitment date set for July the 5th. We'll see if that date potentially changes. Would not be surprised if he moves things up. But I had a chance to talk to his brother the other day. He's been a really big part of his recruitment. Has trained him, coached him, has gone on these visits with him. And he when I first spoke to him last month, I mean, he just spoke so highly of Mo Linquist, Jason Jones, who was hired by Alabama to work in the secondary earlier this year, spoke very highly of him. So that staff has done a remarkable job with Gyra for the last few months, really ever since that early March visit. So kudos to the staff for making a big move there, and we'll see how things kind of transpire over these next few weeks, or maybe even sooner.
I looked at the 5th. It's only like 22 days away. It seems like it's another, 2 months away for some reason. It's kind of like July 5th. But yeah, we can't talk enough about Mo Linquist. I mean, the thing that stands out to us, I think, Andrew's old. I've been doing it a long time, but only Andrew got old. But I mean, in 20 plus years for each of us, we have seen Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt, T Rob, throw the bag at T Rob. We've seen guys that knew what they were doing in that secondary. Nick Saban. Mo recruits, I think, as well. I mean, it's hard to say, but I think he recruits as well, if not better, than every single one of them.
Every time a defensive back coach leaves, it's what are we going to do now? Because they were the ones who got all these elite defensive backs. Carl Scott was another elite recruiter.
Yes, I almost forgot him. Yeah,
Alabama, Derek Ansley. I mean, Alabama just had a long list of guys who recruited extremely well, and Mo has done. I think when Mo got hired, a lot of people just didn't know, really his background. I wrote a story probably a day or two after he was hired, after talking to some people out at Texas A&M. He had previously coached at A&M and had connections in the state of Texas, and we kind of thought that maybe we'd see some a lot of focus on the state of Texas and the connections he had there. And even though he's recruited Texas, his bread and butter obviously as being a defensive backs coach, but recruiting and evaluating defensive backs and building relationships. So it wasn't the connections in Texas. It was being a great recruiter. And when he gets put into a spot, whether it's an area or a position, he does a pretty damn good job.
Tell you, the staff, don't think we can say this so much, because really it's been quite the ride. I mean, when Nick Saban, kind of the fear was Nick Saban would retire. And as he got older, it got more and more, fearful every year. But the one thing about this staff, we're so used to seeing Nick Saban just come in and hammer it home because he was such a closer. This staff is just full of personality, guys that shake hands and high five, and parents. We talk about this all the time, but we can't really talk about it too much. But it starts with Kalen DeBoer, goes to Courtney Morgan, and down to every position, every area, every coordinator, and all the people in the back office that the fans don't see. All of them who did a great job, and I don't think we can ever give them enough credit for helping Kalen DeBoer keep not only the roster but recruit, while the Alabama coaches who were coming were still unable to come to Alabama because they were under contract elsewhere. Anyways, Andrew, this is our official visitor weekend show. We try to have our shows Monday or Tuesday, usually Tuesday, to discuss the recap of the weekend before. Towards the end of the week, Thursday or Friday, we like to have the show previewing the official visitors. Do us a favor. You've been doing a great job watching the show. Hit that like and subscribe button. Let us know you want to see more of this content. We're in it to win it at this stage. So much happening in June that it's hard to avoid. Andrew Bone, we've got 9 visitors. Kind of disappointing after double digits to last 2 weeks. But again, a 5-star, the 5-star, they've hosted 5 or 6 5-stars, I think, up to this point. And next week, is there at least 2, maybe 3 coming again? So they're going close to double digit 5-stars when all is said and
Three or
done.
four already confirmed. Yep.
Yeah, let's talk about Branding Arrington, though. That's a guy everyone's talking about. Absolutely has the Jets, California defensive back. I think he's an athlete. I actually think he's going to be he could be a better wide receiver than DB, but he's got the size, he's got the speed. Coming in for this official visit, definitely an NIL guy. Let's talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, speaking of athlete and wide receiver, he's tweeted a few times over the course of the last month that he's not a one position guy. He plays. He can play on just about any skill position. I mean, this is a tall guy. I mean, he is long. He's 6'3". About 190 pounds, maybe 185 pounds. He ran a 10.2 in the 100 meter. I think he went a 20.85 in the 200 meter. I mean, one of the fastest players in the entire country, and certainly a lot of schools are pushing hard to get him. He's visited Alabama a couple times. Last time was back for Junior Day in February. So this is going to be an interesting trip. He's, I guess, the only 5-star, only top 100 guy that's on campus this weekend. Not to say that a lot of attention is not going to be on the other guys, but this is the highest ranked player that is going to be on campus, and there's going to be a lot of attention on him. I think he's the only. He's one of 2 defensive backs that are going to be on campus, but I guess we'll just see. I mean, I think earlier in the year we felt a little bit better about Alabama's chances. Now, Oregon, USC. There's been a lot of buzz on Texas A&M. He's going into A&M on that last weekend next week.
And Bama got 2 commitments, including the 5-star. So that kind of
that fans want a little tougher. Okay.
Yeah, fans want to take like everybody, but there is a ceiling. There is a max.
So we'll see how the weekend goes. But I think Mo and Courtney have done a good job. And obviously there's the California connection there in the defensive backfield. So, Dejon Lee, Damani Jackson, Chuck McDonald, those guys are going to be recruiting him this weekend, along with Jordan Edmonds, who's going to be back in Tuscaloosa for an unofficial visit throughout the weekend. So he's going to have some top DBs that are going to be trying to get him to strongly consider Alabama.
I tell you what's funny to me is that when they signed Dejon, 6'4", legit 6'4", I just assumed he would dwarf everybody. I just assumed he's a cornerback. He's 6'4". I just thought everybody he would dwarf. But when you see the fit pictures of Jet Washington, even Gyra, who's 6'2", Jordan Edmonds, who's almost 6'3", they're all kind of like in the same ballpark. And you don't really see anybody looking like Javier Arenas, who I loved, by the way. You don't really see anybody because they're so long, they're so tall, and they all got top end speed.
Yeah, we didn't think we were going to see many Pat Surtains coming back to Alabama, especially playing at the corner position. And they've been able to recruit tall corners, but we're also seeing the safeties this year. Gyra 6'2", Jet Washington close to 6'5". I mean, the athletes in this country just seem a lot different than the first couple of years that Saban was in Tuscaloosa, and it seems like they've continued to get bigger, taller, more athletic, and faster. I mean, it's crazy. But Alabama, they've got some great options in the secondary this year, and also at obviously a lot of other positions.
Let's talk about the other guy. He's interesting. The other corner coming in is Jaden Terry, which anybody that follows recruiting will remember his brother last year, Justice Terry, big dude. Obviously went down to the wire. Alabama was involved. He shunned Alabama and Georgia to go to Texas. Massive NIL deal, top 10 5-star. But Jaden Terry, when you look at him, I mean, this is an interesting guy. He's very athletic. Again, he's got the size. He's got the skill set. He's closing in on 6'2", and he can run if you watch his film. So it's not surprising to see Alabama bringing some guys in, kicking the tires. But the name itself is kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure. We reported that on BOL earlier this week that he was going to be making a trip to Tuscaloosa this weekend. I think with Alabama, I mean, a lot of people are wondering, well, how many defensive backs are they going to take? Well, it's not necessarily, in my opinion, and I'm sure yours, not necessarily a number. It's can you can you fit him in that salary cap now?
No, that's the number right there.
Yeah,
The NIL number's the number.
yeah. So it's not necessarily, we got to get,
Right.
we got to hit 25 players. You got to make sure that it works. But Terry's a guy that he's a 3-sport athlete, so he didn't really get a chance to go to a lot of these prospect camps and get seen by a lot of different talent evaluators and stuff like that, or take a lot of unofficial visits for junior days or stuff. He plays football, basketball, and then straight into track. So he had a pretty busy winter and spring, and now he's coming into Tuscaloosa, committed to Georgia Tech back in March. But schools have continued to recruit him, and Alabama has not offered yet. I find that kind of interesting that they're bringing him in for an official visit without an offer. But you know what? We saw that for Junior Day on February the 1st earlier this year, where they brought in every single player that was in had an offer except for one, Chris Booker, who they offered, and then he committed a few weeks later. So, you never know what might happen this weekend, but I don't think that they would bring him in without thinking that, there's a good chance that they could extend him an offer this weekend.
Yeah, and we've seen new offers this week. It still amazes me that the new offers send some fans into a frenzy of, does this mean you missed on him? Do you mean you missed on him? I mean, I'm just honestly like, you have to be like a certain amount of not understanding recruiting to think that Alabama has offered every guy they had ever offered by April before their senior year. No one else is going to emerge. And I struggle with it because Nick Saban was finding guys, Mark Ingram, Eddie Jackson. We can go down the list, Josh Jacobs, who's the famous, all these guys as late as November and December, which was still 2 months before signing day. It's still 7 months before signing day. I think it's a great sign that we know the staff can evaluate. We know they're going to kick over rocks, which is what Saban did. And I think Terry's one of those guys that they found that
they're not going to just take someone just to take them.
No,
they're going to take someone who they believe can play here or can develop here. And you know what? If they can't, then they can hit the transfer portal in a year too. They're not going to push for somebody that they don't have a firm belief that they have the athletic ability and mentality to play in Tuscaloosa.
And it's important now because it's no longer just a free scholarship and a dorm and a handshake and steaks. These guys they cost money. You got to work a contract out with them. So you take the guys you want, probably less guys, but you're getting the more high quality that they can fit in. And you can't forget the portal. There's so many windows to recruit now, and you want to have some money for that. All right, Andrew, but I'll tell you guys, pretty interesting to me is Roman Voss. Tight end, Alabama. We said this going into this cycle. Alabama wanted an impact tight end. Max Sutter narrowed his list down to 4 schools last week. He's from Illinois. He's coming in next weekend. You got Caden Prothrow, who's a big-time player, probably leaning to Georgia. It's already taken an official visit. Now, Roman comes in, Roman Voss, which is an awesome name, and he's coming in from Minnesota, which is kind of interesting. But big guy that can run, can play, down to Bama and Minnesota, which normally that would sound like that's a no-brainer, but I don't think it's a no-brainer because Minnesota's probably going to invest in keeping their top guy or one of their top guys at home.
Yeah, I mean, for Minnesota, this would be the top guy in their recruiting class if they were able to land him, and he's the number 1 recruit in the state of Minnesota. So, that coaching staff's certainly wanting to get a big win there. And you see Minnesota beats Alabama for a recruiting win. I mean, that's a pretty big perception for Minnesota. So we'll see how that goes. But he actually lives a little bit closer to the Iowa border and closer to Iowa, University of Iowa, than he does the University of Minnesota.
How did they not? How are they not in it?
They offered him, and he went on a couple of visits over there, but just ended up not really having that much interest in Iowa, which is kind of shocking because they're pretty much
known.
So but this is going to be his second trip to Alabama. Roman is not a tight end in high school. He is a quarterback who runs the ball just as much as he throws the ball, but he is going to move to a tight end at the next level. He's 6'3", 6'4", about 220 pounds, really athletic kid. He's got some connections. His family has some connections with Kalen DeBoer, with Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb actually did some business before he got into coaching with Roman Voss's dad and his father back 20 years ago, which was wild. We have a story on that on BOL, but going to be interesting to see kind of what transpires with him this weekend, because as you mentioned, there's some other tight ends that have been on the board. Max Sutter, who's been one of Alabama's priority targets, is going to be in Tuscaloosa next weekend. Does Alabama push and try to get 2 tight ends in this class? Do they wait on Sutter to make a decision next week? I think those conversations are going to happen with Roman this week. He wants to make a decision maybe a week or 2 after this visit. He's already visited Minnesota, so his dad said after they return from this trip, they'll sit down and have those conversations. But big family trip for them this weekend. Parents, brother, older brother, and sister will all be on campus.
Let's talk about Javian Mallory, Miami commitment, 6 foot, 200 pounds. I watched this guy. He's got some bowling ball traits. He's a 4-star. To me, kind of, I'm not sure there's going to be 25, 24 better running backs in the country than this guy. From South Florida, has the look, has that willingness to run between the tackles, has some runaway speed. And the thing when you watch his film, they're playing good talent in South Florida, right? You can't really go to a high school and just cherry pick an easy way. There's going to be athletes all over the field. And Bama's still looking to get a running back in this class.
Yeah, and I don't think they're limited to just one. I think they would take 2 if they can make the numbers work. And Javian's a guy that they offered back, I think it was last spring. Robert Gillespie went down there and saw him back there in the spring eval period. Just had not had a chance to visit yet. I think since the Nick Saban era. So he's going to make the trip this weekend. Really seems very high on Alabama based on our conversation with him earlier this week. Coach Gillespie also had an in-home visit with him in January and also last month. So Alabama's been on him for a while. It's not just some guy that popped up out of nowhere. They seem to like him a good bit. He's been committed to Miami since March, but Alabama's certainly in the conversation right now. It's going to be interesting with Miami because they're really pushing hard for Derek Cooper, the number 3 running back in the country, who also lives in South Florida. So, could that potentially play into this recruitment? We'll just kind of have to wait and see. But Javian will be in town with his mom, his grandmother, and his sister. So, we'll see how his weekend goes.
Yeah, and everybody's fighting the same battle to some degree with fitting guys in, and you go heavy on Derek Cooper, you wonder somebody else. And again, Alabama's got a Xavier Kroll coming in next week. He's at one of the elite running backs in the class. He's at Texas this week. Wait, is he at Texas this weekend? Or was it Auburn this weekend? He was at Texas last weekend. Obviously, he's coming in. Alabama's got some bangers coming in that last weekend as far as big names go. But we'll be watching Mallory closely. Other guys, the position. Now, there's been this is how I know Alabama and Freddie Roach has done a good job. There's been no griping about defensive line recruiting. Name the last time in the last 10 since 8 years at least we haven't griped. We griped under Roach, the 3 coaches before him, defensive line recruiting. Even the year they got James Smith, who was a 5-star, people just forgot had James amnesia, but they're bringing in another one. They got some good ones committed, got some good ones on the board, and they're bringing in another guy that's been linked to Alabama for a while with Elijah Golden from Virginia. Got a ton of big offers. We haven't really talked about him much lately because we've been focusing on Titan Davis, who's coming closer to a decision, and other guys, but Golden's another guy that's got some elite offers and a 4-star guy.
Yeah, as you mentioned, originally from Virginia, played his sophomore season at IMG, then moved to another school down in Florida and at Cardinal Mooney in Sarasota. So basically just right down the road from IMG in Bradenton. But this is a guy that they've liked for a while. Offered back in January. He's visited. This will be his 3rd trip to Tuscaloosa since late March. So he's always expressed high interest there. And, as you mentioned, we haven't talked about him as much lately because there have been other defensive linemen that have been visiting Alabama this month. So this is
Every
his first
week.
trip back. So we're talking about him a little bit more. I mean, that's a big kid, 6'4", 275 pounds. We don't think Alabama would say no if he wanted to jump on board. There's obviously some other schools that are heavy after him as well. Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Virginia Tech, also another school in that mix. I think that we'll just kind of have to wait and see where he stands after this weekend. And I think we're going to also wait and see what happens if we see a guy like Titan Davis or J.J. Finch or Nolan Wilson, somebody like that decides that they're going to jump on board before Golden makes a decision. Not that Alabama would say no to him, but does he look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else because they have 3 or 4 defensive line commitments. Now I'm going to go somewhere that has 1 or 2 defensive line commitments. So it's.
And that factors in. You can't just stockpile them. That factors in on their end also. So it's not just Alabama choosing them over. They're kind of trying to get that pecking order out of the top. So very good point. We've got a couple of linebackers before we get out of here we're going to touch on. Now, I think we're going to – so you've got Nick Abrams coming in, 4-star guys, got offers from everybody. You've got a more interesting guy, or one we're not as familiar with Kalen Maycock. Been struggling, like practicing that name not to mess anything up there. That one's got a couple curveballs for me. But we got a couple linebackers coming in.
I think it's my.
You know what? It probably is. I don't know how to say. I was going to call him Karen, and I kept not even sure of the first name. But he threw an O in on Karen for me. But the one I want to talk about, we got 2 coming in this weekend. Let's talk about Zay Hall, local guy, got an offer. We're hoping, we're hoping to confirm an official visit here in the next week. A guy local meaning Tuscaloosa. 6'2", 200+ pounds, ran a 4.5 at Alabama's camp this week. Let's touch on him before we get into the final official visitors.
Yeah, Zay Hall came to Alabama's. He had a 7-on-7. They had a 7-on-7 camp earlier in the week, and he came out there, worked out, not just participating in 7-on-7, but they got some testing numbers with him as well. This kid that they brought on campus several times throughout the year. So there was interest there. They just wanted to see him camp. We've seen that with several guys throughout the last several years where there was interest. But hey, come to camp and we'll kind of go from there. So he comes to Alabama's camp. Not quite 6'2", as it said on his profile page. I think he's a little bit closer to about 6'1", about 230 pounds. But he came in and ran a 4.54 in the 40, and that was enough for Alabama to say, all right, time to extend him an offer. And he's a local kid. Doesn't have a ton of offers right now. I think Virginia Tech might be the biggest one outside of Alabama. So that probably bodes a little bit better for Alabama. And so we'll kind of see what happens there. It looks like he's probably going to make that official visit to Alabama next weekend. Would not be surprised if we saw a quick decision after that. But yeah, I mean, it's a local kid that I think would love to be a part of Alabama's football team here in the future.
And I think you're going to see that more with SEC schools. You've seen Georgia recruiting some guys similar to that, Alabama. There's going to be others that you get local kids who don't have to play right away. Their NIL's not huge. You bring them in, they can develop. Developmental players are still ideal unless they cost you $600,000 a year. You don't want to pay somebody a lot of NIL to train them. But
and that number can raise. I mean, you're not stuck at that number once they come in. They develop, they get better. And coaches see that.
More money.
You can get more money, or you know what? If you're not happy and you feel like you should lose it, you can go somewhere else.
Let's talk about Nick Abrams before we move on from here. He's an interesting guy coming in, 6'2", 220. Alabama's been involved with him, top 200 type player, has all the offers you would expect. Georgia, Oregon, Michigan, Alabama, I think is his Final Four right now. Not a lot. This guy seems pretty open to me. I mean, I haven't really felt a vibe talking to other people like he's a really strong lock anywhere. I think maybe he is going through this process.
Yeah, he's already visited Georgia and Michigan, and after the Georgia visit, basically didn't say that they were the leader, but said they set the bar, and then goes to Michigan and says, They said they tied the bar with Georgia. So now he's coming on his third official visit. So and as we've kind of seen with all these official visits, even if kids aren't going to Alabama, everybody's raving about these trips and how close they're getting with the players and the coaches and how much fun they're having. So we certainly expect him to have a great trip. He might come out and say Alabama has also set the bar, and so it's a top three, right there. And then he's got the trip to Oregon next week. So a lot of people not really sure which direction he's going to go in right now. I think he's making a decision in mid-July, so we'll have to wait a little bit for that. But Alabama's recruited him since January. This is going to be his second trip to Tuscaloosa. Came back originally visited during the spring. Great relationship with Coach Morrell, who also went and had an in-home visit with him last month. But I think with Abrams, it's more of just you kind of wait and see how the weekend goes, and then how his trip to Oregon goes, and then once the dust kind of settles down and he thinks about it for a couple of weeks, you kind of figure out where things really stand with him.
Well, we've got you. One last request. Hit that like and subscribe button. Andrew, show them that thumb. This is our famous BOL thumb right there. Hit that like and subscribe button. That's the thumb we use. That thing keeps me up at night sometimes. We appreciate y'all spending your time here. We know it's valuable to you. You can check us out at the BOL Roundtable, BamaOnline.com. Andrew and I are constantly on there chit-chatting, talking to people. There's a lot of fun. I mean, especially this time of year when things are going right. Charlie Potter, who's currently in Japan teaching manners lessons to the Japanese. That's not true. And Blake Byler do a great job for us with the team, but we all chip in and talk basketball, recruiting, and we talk, of course, football. If you give us a chance, hit that like and subscribe button. Andrew, before we get out of here, a couple of Bama commitments visiting elsewhere. Brief recaps on what we think and what's going on with them.
Yeah, so we'll see. I think 3 Alabama commitments visiting other schools this weekend. Chris Booker, 4-star lineman from Georgia, is going to be down at Florida. He's already taken a few official visits this month. Ole Miss, Georgia. Both of those schools are really pushing hard to try to flip him. Alabama's also, we're going to keep him on board. But I think Florida's the school that we're watching a little bit closer, just because he's been down there a couple of times. They've recruited him, longer, harder than the other 2 schools that are, trying to flip him away from Alabama. So we'll watch that visit this weekend. Zion Gibson going to Tennessee. And Booker, along with Gibson, they were both in Tuscaloosa for Team 7-on-7 this week. So they were on campus, spending time with the coaching staff as well. But Zion's going to go to Tennessee. They're both visiting Alabama next weekend on that final official visit weekend. So there'll be some serious conversations with both of those guys. What has some of these other schools offered, when they went on their campuses from an NIL perspective. But I think Tennessee certainly is doing everything they can to try to flip Zion. He's been a top target for them for months, ever since last year. I think they offered him either before Alabama or shortly after Alabama, so more than a year. And then Jamarian Matthews, who committed to Alabama back in February, he's going to go on a trip to LSU this weekend. Jamarian's kind of come across, not acting, but has come across as a very solid commitment to Alabama. Has been trying to help recruit others, but has also, been open about taking visits. So I think he's going to continue to take these other trips, kind of see, what's out there. But Alabama, I think as of right now, they feel pretty. Or at least he feels strong about his commitment to Alabama. I'm guessing Alabama feels the same way. But those are the 3 visits that we're watching this weekend. Jordan Edmonds, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be back in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. And who else? There's another commitment. Sam Utu. Sam Utu is not going anywhere. And then Mari Johnson out of Muscle Shoals was scheduled to take an Auburn visit this weekend and then a visit to Miami next weekend. But after his official to Alabama, decided to go ahead and shut things down and won't take any more visits.
And the Alabama staff, just for the record, they're okay. They knew they were going to take visits. They're not trying to shut them down. The kids that shut down their recruitment shut it on their own. I know Saban a long time ago said, "You shop, we shop," but even then, Nick Saban had kids committed to him that took visits. I mean, especially in the day of the portal, you want them to know Alabama's the place for them because they have any doubts. They can leave in December. They can leave in April. There's multiple windows for them to leave. I'm sure the NCAA is adding 2 more of them while we're talking. But anyways, we appreciate you, Alabama fans. We hope y'all have a great weekend. Check us out at BOL on the round table. Andrew will be posting his new Speedo shots he's got for the local pool, neighborhood pool. And Andrew, you didn't laugh, so oh, he's reading. You always tell when Andrew's reading. His eyes are going side to side. And but we hope y'all have a great weekend. It's great pool weather. Andrew, tell them goodbye and that we will see them Monday or Tuesday unless there's breaking news. If there's breaking news, we might hop in here and talk to y'all again.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you guys and gals for watching the show today. As Tim said, we'll be on BamaOnline.com throughout the entire weekend, posting updates, talking to you guys. So come over there, check us out. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's $1 for a week. There's a week left for the recruiting season, for the official visit season. So go pay that $1, jump on the board, come talk to us, read the content, and then we'll see you back here next week.
All right, you guys have a good weekend. Roll Tide.